On the morning of May 27, 2015, Swiss police entered a five-star hotel in Zurich at 6 in the morning and arrested 14 FIFA officials before they could catch their flights home. The United States Department of Justice called it the largest corruption case in the history of sport. $150 million in documented bribes. Decades of rigged votes, sold media rights, and payments made in hotel rooms and wire transfers across 3 continents. The man who ran FIFA for 17 years was at the center of all of it. He was never convicted of a single criminal charge. And last week, 11 years after those arrests, the United States Department of Justice officially closed the final case. The reason they gave: bribery is not a priority. In 2015, the FIFA corruption story felt like a reckoning. Officials were arrested at their hotel before they could scatter. Guilty pleas started coming in almost immediately. Over 24 FIFA officials and executives entered pleas, cooperated with prosecutors, and described in precise detail how the system had worked, how bribes were requested, how they were paid, how millions were laundered through shell companies and wire transfers across multiple countries. Joseph Blatter resigned as FIFA president on June 2, 2015. He had held the role since 1998, 17 years. He gave a press conference in which he said the decision came from the good of football. He looked calm. He looked like a man who expected to be fine. He was right. The corruption the DOJ was prosecuting centered on the commercial structure of football in the Americas. Officials who controlled the rights to major tournaments, the Copa America, the Copa Libertadores, World Cup qualifying, were bribed by sports marketing executives and media companies to hand those rights over at prices far below market value. The bribes were the cost of access. The profits that followed were enormous. Blatter was not among the officials arrested in Zurich. He was not in the hotel that morning. He presided over an organization in which this system ran for decades. But direct documentary evidence connecting him personally to specific transactions that was harder to establish. That is how the top of an institution works. You don't take the bribe. You receive the benefit of everything the bribe makes possible. The system runs below you. You run the system. In September 2015, 3 months after Blatter's resignation, Swiss authorities opened a separate criminal investigation into him. The allegation: a fraudulent payment of 2 million Swiss francs made in 2011 to Michel Platini, then president of UEFA. Blatter said it was a legitimate payment under an old verbal agreement for advisory work Platini had done for FIFA nearly a decade earlier. Both men denied wrongdoing. Both said it was legitimate. Neither had a written contract to show. The Swiss investigation took 7 years. In July 2022, the Swiss Federal Criminal Court acquitted Blatter and Platini. The court accepted their claim of a gentleman's agreement. Prosecutors appealed. In March 2025, a federal appeals court acquitted them again. In August 2025, the Swiss case was officially and permanently closed. Blatter was 89 years old. He had been president of FIFA during the period in which $150 million in documented bribes flowed through the game. He had never been convicted of anything. And critically, the Swiss investigation was never about that money. It was about one payment. The broader question of how FIFA's commercial rights had been corrupted across 3 decades, that question was never put to him in any courtroom, anywhere in the world. To understand why the man at the top was never charged, you have to understand how the machine was built. FIFA operates through 6 continental confederations. Each confederation controls commercial rights for football within its territory. The corruption the DOJ prosecuted was concentrated primarily in CONCACAF, the confederation covering North America, Central America, and the Caribbean, and in CONMEBOL, the South American Confederation. The key figure in the early stages of the DOJ case was a man named Chuck Blazer. He had served as General Secretary of CONCACAF for 2 decades. He had helped engineer Jack Warner's election as CONCACAF president. Together, they built a machine. The media rights for the Copa America, the Gold Cup, the Copa Libertadores, World Cup qualifying. These were sold to sports marketing companies who paid bribes to the officials with the power to award the contracts. The companies got the rights at below market prices. The officials got the payments. The money moved through shell accounts, wire transfers, and cash payments in hotel rooms. Chuck Blazer was eventually caught through a separate tax investigation. He owed millions in back taxes on the bribes he had received and not declared. When federal investigators closed in, Blazer agreed to cooperate. He became an informant. He wore a recording device to a FIFA Congress. He provided evidence for years. He was never sentenced. He died in October 2017, before sentencing, from cancer. Jack Warner, the man who had been CONCACAF president and a FIFA vice president, the man who had been at the heart of the system for 3 decades, fled to Trinidad and Tobago after the 2015 arrests. He has lived there ever since. He faces U.S. charges. Trinidad and Tobago has not extradited him. He remains there, at liberty, today. Here is what matters about how the machine worked. It required Blatter's FIFA to function. Every contract that was corrupted, every rights deal that was rigged, every bribe that was paid, it all happened inside the structure that Blatter ran. The corruption was not a shadow economy running alongside FIFA. It was FIFA's economy. The DOJ case was, by any measure, successful. Between 2015 and 2023, more than 40 individuals were charged. Over 24 pleaded guilty or were convicted. Sports marketing executives, television rights brokers, FIFA officials from multiple confederations, they pleaded guilty, cooperated, described the system in minute detail, and were sentenced. The cooperators described a world where corruption was so normalized it required no concealment. Officials expected payments, companies budgeted for them. The language used in meetings was sometimes explicit. Everyone understood what was happening and why. But as the years passed, the largest figures remained untouched by U.S. courts. Nicholas Leos, who had served as CONMEBOL president for decades and was one of the central figures in the Copa America bribery scheme, was charged in the U.S. He never faced trial. He died in 2019 in Paraguay at the age of 90 of natural causes. Jack Warner, as already discussed, remains in Trinidad. And then came May 27, 2026. 11 years to the day after the Zurich arrests, the United States Department of Justice moved to dismiss the remaining active FIFA corruption case. The U.S. attorney who filed the motion was Edward Nocella. The statement accompanying the filing said that pursuing foreign bribery cases of this kind was not a priority for the current administration. Not a priority. $150 million in documented bribes. 10 years of investigation, the testimony of dozens of cooperating witnesses. The detailed, sworn descriptions of how football's governing body had been systematically corrupted. Not a priority, the case ended with a filing. No hearing, no press conference, no acknowledgement of what the decade had produced or failed to produce. Joseph Sepp Blatter is 90 years old. He lives in Switzerland. He gives occasional interviews. He has said, at various points, that the corruption happened below him, that he did not know the extent of what was occurring, and that he dedicated his life to football. He has never been convicted of anything. Michel Platini had his UEFA presidency stripped from him by FIFA's Ethics Committee in 2015, following the Swiss investigation. He was banned from football for 4 years. The ban was later reduced, then partially overturned. He was acquitted twice in Swiss courts. He is at liberty. Jack Warner is in Trinidad. He has contested his extradition for 11 years. He remained publicly active in Trinidadian politics for years after his FIFA career ended. He has never faced trial in the United States. The 2018 World Cup was held in Russia. Russia's bid is the subject of ongoing corruption allegations that have never been prosecuted. The 2022 World Cup was held in Qatar. Investigations by journalists and prosecutors have produced detailed allegations about the conduct of the vote. No one has ever been convicted in connection with either award. FIFA continues to operate. It continues to award World Cups. It has introduced governance reforms. It has published ethics reports. It has appointed new officials. It has never faced criminal prosecution as an institution. Here is what the FIFA corruption case produced. More than 40 individuals charged, more than 24 convicted. Hundreds of millions in fines and forfeitures. A detailed public record, built from guilty pleas, cooperation agreements, and court filings, of how football's governing body was used as an instrument of systematic bribery for 3 decades. Here is what it did not produce: a conviction of the man who ran the organization for 17 years. A prosecution of the organization itself. A reckoning for the World Cup votes that are most suspected of corruption. An answer to the simplest question this case always raised: if the machine ran for 30 years, inside FIFA, funded by FIFA contracts, and FIFA was run from the top, what did the top know, and when? That question was asked, it was investigated. And then, on May 27, 2026, 11 years after Swiss police walked into a five-star hotel before dawn, the United States Department of Justice decided it was not a priority: $150 million. 17 years, 2 acquittals, 1 dismissal, no conviction.